Let's get into something a lot deeper. We must talk about the federal erasure of Black history, because ever since early this year, federal agencies, including the Smithsonian and the Department of Defense, now the Department of War, have removed or censored content linked to Black history and civil rights, prompting backlash from historians as well as a lot of our civil rights groups. And we're talking about entire exhibits, web pages, and figures from Harriet Tubman to Jackie Robinson's military service were scrubbed or downgraded, and civil rights coalitions have issued statements defending public memory, warning that erasure erodes shared roots and societal power, and the narrative "no roots, no power" resonate across community resistance. This isn't just about history. It's about who controls the narrative and whose stories empower society. Erasure undermines identity, truth, and unity. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the erasure of Black history. Would they like the erasure of white history, or Asian history, or Hispanic history, or Pacific Islander history, or any other history that we have here in America? Let's erase white history. Let's erase George Washington. Matter of fact, let's erase all, and I don't mean, okay, I'm talking about figuratively, according to the text and literature and documents, okay, not physically, of American presidents and congresspeople and anything that have been achieved by other non-Black groups. Let's just erase it. Let's not have museums. Let's not have libraries. Let's burn books. Let's just do it. Let's just put books in a pile like Nazi Germany, and let's just burn all the books. I mean, we hired Nazi scientists, did we not, to create the atomic bomb? Let's erase it, okay? And this is an executive order that the president has signed, redefining American history, changing, eradicating, and erasing Black history to only show the prowess of white colonial history. It states here that restoring truth and sanity to American history directed the Department of the Interior to review and potentially reinstate Confederate monuments removed since 2020. The order also criticized federal efforts to acknowledge racism and historical injustice as divisive and based on improper partisan ideology. Let me show you one more thing here. Here's the executive order. If you want to read it for yourself, restoring truth and sanity to the American history. The quiet deletion of Black history within federal agencies and the fight to stop it. People who say, well, it shouldn't be no Black History Month. It should just be history. It shouldn't be no Hispanic Heritage Month. It should just be history. Then guess what? If it's just going to be history, then it should also include Black history, white history, Hispanic history, Asian history of America. But that's not the point. They're trying to reinstate Confederate monuments. I thought this was the United States. I thought this was the United States. I thought this was the United States of America, not the Confederate States of America. The Confederate lost the war. The Union won the war. See, when I think about President Trump and how he, on one hand, let's have some Black figures in this national museum. Let's have a lot of Black figures. We're going to have white figures. We're going to have this whole melting pot. But then you're trying to kill diversity when it comes to the African-American Museum, because a lot of these other museums, they show white history. So the one museum that we do have, he's trying to eradicate and stop federal funding so he can erase Black history from America. This is the federal erasure of Black history, and we're used to this. This is why Texas have eradicated names out of a lot of the textbooks. Instead of saying slave, they're saying laborers. They'll know they were slaves. They're trying to eradicate Black history and the treacherous nature of colonial powers of how America got started. You know what? We might as well eradicate Native American history. We shouldn't teach that either, should we not? We should eradicate that Christopher Columbus, which we already know he didn't discover America, by the way. Lord have mercy. He didn't discover America because there was already indigenous Black Americans and indigenous red Mongolian type looking people already here in the Americas before Christopher Columbus even got here. And matter of fact, he got information that it was people here. And he stated that in the records. But again, a lot of the things they like to omit from history. But if you guys just want to eradicate, then we need to eradicate race from the U.S. Census Bureau, should we not? But no, race exists in America. We should eradicate race from the U.S. Census, from American government, because again, they had these different ethnicities and they had these different races and they break them down. Again, you can read this for yourself. I'm just going to point out the two main races that we're referring to here: Black or African American, individual with origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa. What? Because we understand that South Africa has, they have the Boers there. North Africa has the, Arab Emirates, which a lot of people like Algeria, Libya, the northern part of those countries have white, light-looking people. But they distinctively say many of the black racial groups of Africa. And then they call, they name out for, African American, Jamaican, Haitian, Nigerian, Ethiopian, Somali. When you come to America, you can be labeled as Black. Okay. So I guess Elon Musk is Black. Gotcha. But no, again, it says the Black racial groups, and he's not from a Black racial group. If anything, he's from the Netherlands racial group. And then we get down here to white, individual with origins in any of the original peoples of Europe. The original peoples of Europe. Where's the same terminology of white racial groups of Europe? White racial groups of Europe. What happened to that? Including, for example, English, German, Irish, Italy, Polish, and Scottish, because, ladies and gentlemen, do not forget the Blackamoors, the Moors dominated and was in power in Italy for 700 years. Excuse me, not Italy, Spain for 700 years. I'm just pausing here for you guys to really think about the way the U.S. government, right here on government website, show you the discrimination and how they separate and divide people. Because, some people say, hey, stop saying Black, stop saying African American, stop saying this, stop saying that. And I'll say I'm a foundation Black American. Well, stop saying Black, because if you read the Black Laws Dictionary, edition 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, Black is dead at law. Well, there's a lot of dead people in America that label themselves as Black according to the U.S. Census. And again, we can kind of get into the weeds about this when we say that, hey, listen, there's no race. That's a social construct. Well, America said there's a race and you would be deemed as such. Let's eradicate race from applications. Let's eradicate race from anything that you do on paper from America so we can stop the racism and discrimination and divide. Can we vote on that? Can we vote on an executive order or some legislation that eradicates race from America? Because I'm getting to a point where we need to know how many demographics of people in America. Then we have these different demographics, even though there's a shared American history, that it doesn't matter what race you are. We all share American history. We all celebrate American holidays, but they were trying to downplay Juneteenth. Then President Trump stated that, we already have too many holidays. President Trump, we only have 11 federal holidays. 11 days? Out of 365, that's not a lot. And I'm not trying to compare us to Europe, but Europe has a hell of a lot more. Let's get into it. I want to break this down because we're witnessing is not an accident, it's a strategy since earlier this year, because federal agencies, yes, agencies funded by your tax dollars, have been scrubbing, have been censoring, outright removal content linked to Black history and our civil rights. Because do not forget, non-white groups, civil rights included you as well. But this is on top of Black people. He wasn't going to forget Black people. The Smithsonian, the Department of Defense, even online archives once dedicated to figures like Harriet Tubman, Jackie Robinson, and his military service, and the freedom riders, gone or downgraded or buried so deep you'll need a shovel to find them. And the question is why? Civil rights coalitions, legal defense groups, and historians are already sounding the alarm. The Legal Defense Fund called it a direct assault on truth and democracy. Capital B News highlighted how public memory is now being weaponized, because if you erase the roots of a people, you strip them of power. If you have no roots, you have no power. If you eradicate Black history from this nation, then you will never know the contributions of Black Americans. And I'm not just talking about Jordans. And I'm not just talking about Jackie Robinson and baseball breakthrough. And I'm not talking about Harriet Tubman. I'm talking about the achievements and success and inventions and innovations in all the industries that Black Americans have contributed and led in innovations. They're trying to eradicate our achievements and our advancement when it comes to the human experience. We have invented a lot of things. We have innovated a lot of things, ladies and gentlemen. But they're trying to eradicate that, because when you don't have any roots, you don't have any power. When you don't have any roots, you don't have any history. When you don't have any roots, you don't have any information. And believe me when I tell you this isn't paranoia. This is historical repetition. Because let me take you guys back in the 19th century during the Reconstruction. Newly built Black schools and community documented our progress. But as Jim Crow rode in and the white supremacist lawmakers, look at the times we live in. They rewrote and they reworded, removing Black achievement from textbook while promoting lost cause myth that glorified who and what? The Confederacy. Because now they're trying to embark on a new era of the American society and trying to downgrade Black history, and they're trying to prop up Confederate monuments. This is what you call the Erasure Project. And if you fast forward to the 1960s, the FBI's COINTELPRO didn't just target Black leaders, it also sought to bury the history of resistance. Entire archives of speeches and letters and photographs were locked away, discredited, or destroyed. And now here in 2025, we're watching a digital version of the same thing and a physical version. They may just eradicate Black History Month. They may just demolition the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. Government websites quietly scrubbing Black military heroes, federal museums. I wonder if they're going to erase the history of the 54 Massachusetts of the Buffalo Soldiers. Their Reconstruction civil rights exhibits. Neutrality, ladies and gentlemen, means silence about Black pain and Black resistance and Black power and the empowerment of our people. Not just to believe that we were just slaves, not just to believe that we're just homeless, not just believe that we're just hoodlums and villains and thugs and gangsters. No, if you really want to tell the truth, America, tell the truth about your colonial ancestors who were the true thugs and gangsters and genocidal maniacs of all the lands that you guys, quote unquote, conquered. But now this is a new day. We're living in the 21st century. Everybody should be represented except for Black folk, because we're going to erase your history. Believe me, the numbers back this up, because according to a 2023 Pew Research survey, 60% of teachers said political pressure forced them to downplay race and history in the classroom. Book bans skyrocketed. Over 1,200 titles in 2023 alone, and many focus on Black authors, civil rights, and even biographies of Dr. King and Rosa Parks. This is why the narrative of no roots, no power really matters, because history is just not the past. It's the story we stand on. If you erase Harriet Tubman, if you erase the spirit of resistance, if you erase Jackie Robinson's service, you erase the reality of sacrifice, you erase the March on Washington, you erase the blueprint for change, you erase I Had a Dream. Historians like Carter G. Woodson warned us back in the miseducation of the Negro that controlling the people know about their past shapes their future. That is why teaching our children our history and about the innovation, not just slavery, not just Jim Crow, not just redlining, not just mass incarceration, but the achievement and success that disregards civil rights altogether, but the inventions and innovations that we have made in this country. If we don't know we built, we fought and invented and resisted, then we accept the lie that we contributed nothing. This is what they're doing. But here's the danger. Erasure doesn't just hurt us, it fractures the entire nation. Because shared memory is what unites a people. See, when other people, white people, Asian people, Hispanic people, really know Black American history, like, wow, what happened since the 1960s? You guys used to dress nice. You guys would be cordial. You had all of these great things going. What happened? And then you tell them more history of how things transpired through that time. Because when you delete one group story, you don't create unity. You create a hollow myth that collapses under its own weight. So what do? We resist and we record. We teach outside of their institutions. We teach ourselves. From Black-owned media to grassroots archives to oral history passed down in the living room. We cannot rely on the same federal government that erases us to also preserve us. We can't depend on the federal government to preserve our own history. They will preserve the Holocaust history, never said anything about the Holocaust Museum. They said nothing about erasure of that history, but they would like to erase Black American history because erasure is power. They can tell you our story instead of us telling our story through actual evidence and historical records. Let's erase Black history and we'll tell our future generations about Black people. We know how that's been turning out. Control of memory is control of the present. And if they control the present, they decide the future. This is federal erasure of Black history, ladies and gentlemen. So I leave you with this. No roots, no power. But when we hold on to our roots, when we argue our truth, when we fight to preserve our icons, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, W.E.B. Du Bois, and every ancestor who laid foundation, we not only keep our power, we expand it. The erasure is real, and we should wake the hell up because our response needs to be a lot stronger than that.